alligator with an object in his mouth. As the detective got closer, they fired one round to the alligator. The alligator dropped the object that he had in his mouth, and we were able to retrieve Taylen's body intact.
On April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2023, social media was overwhelmed with shocking headlines such as "Boy found in alligator's mouth" and "2-year-old eaten by gator," leaving the public in disbelief. At first, many assumed it was a twisted prank. Unfortunately, it was all too real. The horrifying discovery was made by a fisherman in St. Petersburg, Florida, just hours after an Amber Alert had been issued for a missing 2-year-old boy named Taylen Mosley. Where were Taylen's parents? Was this a tragic accident or something far more sinister? All will be revealed in this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. What followed was a deeply disturbing and chilling story. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. It all started on the morning of Thursday, March 30th, 2023. As she did every morning, Lakita Denson tried to FaceTime her daughter, Pashun Jeffrey. But this time, every call went straight to voicemail, and Lakita's concern quickly grew. Pashun Jeffrey, just 20 years old, was a native of St. Petersburg, Florida. She had graduated with honors from Northeast High School in 2021, despite facing serious challenges. During her junior year, she became pregnant, but she persevered and finished school successfully. In her graduation photo, she proudly held her baby boy, Taylen Mosley, born on October 23, 2020. Taylen was her son, with her boyfriend Thomas Mosley. Thomas was focused on pursuing a career as a rapper. Rather than maintaining steady employment, he dedicated his time to music, which left Pashun to take on most of the responsibilities. Still, Pashun was determined to create a secure life for herself and Taylen. She worked full-time at a nearby CVS pharmacy, and through hard work and determination, she managed to get her own apartment at the Lincoln Shores complex. Supporting both herself and her son wasn't easy, but she took pride in what she had achieved. Taylen, now 2 years old, was a sweet and affectionate child with a bright spirit. His family lovingly called him Tay-Tay, and he was usually dressed in his favorite color, orange. While Pashun was at work, Taylen stayed with either his grandmother or great-aunt. No matter how busy her day was, Pashun always made time to FaceTime her son during her breaks. Their bond was strong, and Taylen was always excited for her to come home. Pashun had only been living at Lincoln Shores for about a month when Thomas began spending more time at her place. Even though he still didn't have steady work, things seemed relatively peaceful during the weeks leading up to the end of March. In fact, on Wednesday, March 29th, Pashun threw a small party at her apartment to celebrate Thomas's 21st birthday. Friends and family attended, and by the time they left, everything seemed normal. But the next morning, everything took a dark turn. When Pashun's mother and aunt tried to call her and received no response, their worry deepened. Her aunt decided to go over to Pashun's apartment at Lincoln Shores to check on her. When she arrived, what she saw was chilling. A trail of blood beginning near Pashun's blue Nissan and leading all the way to her apartment door. She knocked and banged on the door, but there was no answer. Alarmed, she found a complex staff member and asked for a welfare check. Given the bloody trail and silence inside, the employee agreed to unlock the door. What they found inside was horrifying. Blood covered the apartment, evidence of a brutal struggle. In the bathroom, they discovered Pashun's lifeless body, stabbed over 100 times, to the point of being unrecognizable. But something made the scene even worse. 2-year-old Taylen was gone. There was no sign of him. Had he been kidnapped? Was he still alive? Or had something even more tragic happened? These questions cast a heavy shadow over what had already become a nightmare as the search for Taylen began. When police arrived at the Lincoln Shores apartment complex, their top priority was clear: locate 2-year-old Taylen Mosley and make sure he was safe. While they were certain a crime had been committed, their immediate concern was ensuring the child hadn't become a second victim. An Amber Alert was issued right away, and the search quickly grew in scale. Local law enforcement, the community, and even the FBI joined forces in the urgent mission to find the missing toddler. Thomas Mosley, who had been the last known person with both Pashun and Taylen after the birthday celebration, immediately became a person of interest. There was still hope that he might have taken Taylen somewhere safe, and that whatever had happened to Pashun occurred afterward. If Thomas had no involvement in the violence, there was a chance Taylen could still be found alive and unharmed. Investigators turned their attention toward Thomas's mother's home. Located just a 20-minute drive away, perhaps he had gone there with his son. Meanwhile, the disturbing story rapidly spread through the local media, drawing more attention and concern from the public.
An Amber Alert has been issued for this missing 2-year-old boy you see on the right side of your screen here. It happened at the Lincoln Shores Apartments on 4th Street North, where detectives found 20-year-old Pashun Jeffrey dead. Police tell us her 2-year-old son, Taylen Mosley, is missing right now. Again, you see him right here. Police believe he could be in danger. The FDLE says he's been kidnapped. They are searching for him right now.
Meanwhile, investigators traced Thomas Mosley to his mother's home. She informed them that he had arrived the previous night around 9:15 p.m. with visible cuts on both his arms and hands. Not long after, he went to St. Anthony's Hospital for treatment. When police located Thomas, they took note of his injuries. The cuts on his hands were consistent with knife slip wounds, injuries that typically occur when a person's hand slides down the blade during a stabbing. These were not the kind of wounds associated with self-defense. When questioned by authorities, Thomas refused to cooperate and immediately requested a lawyer. What raised even more concern was that he didn't have Taylen with him, and he refused to say where the child was. With every passing minute, the urgency to find the missing 2-year-old grew more intense.
We want to talk to the father. Again, we want to know where Taylen is. And we want the father, if he knows where Taylen is, to tell us. And that's what we want. We want Taylen.
As police continued questioning Thomas, the search for Taylen Mosley grew more desperate. First responders, helicopters, drones, and K-9 units fanned out across St. Petersburg, combing every possible location. The urgency was palpable. Meanwhile, Taylen's family made an emotional public plea. Taylen is such a sweet boy. He's always smiling, always laughing. He adored his mom, and she loved him more than anything. We're asking the public, please help us find Taylen. We've already lost Pashun, and we can't lose Taylen too. Someone out there knows something. Please don't stay silent. As the investigation ramped up, dive teams searched local canals and lakes, and a bloodhound from a nearby county was brought in to assist. Investigators went through Pashun's car, and a flatbed truck removed a dumpster from the apartment complex to examine its contents for possible evidence. Ground teams worked relentlessly through the night, while the community rallied together, holding on to hope that Taylen could still be found alive. One neighbor voiced the heartbreak that everyone was feeling. A toddler missing, a mother found dead. It was a very violent homicide. Why is there so much hate in this world, that someone could do something so horrible, such a heinous crime, just absolutely devastating? While investigators continued processing the scene at Pashun's apartment, neighbors began recalling that they had heard some commotion around 8:15 p.m. on Wednesday night. Although the sounds suggested a disturbance, at the time it hadn't seemed serious enough for anyone to call the police. The search for Taylen stretched into Friday afternoon, with still no sign of the missing toddler. Then, later that evening, a chilling development shattered any remaining hope. Just a few blocks from the home of Thomas Mosley's mother, a man named Little Golden was fishing at Lake Maggiore inside Dell Homes Park. The lake was well known for its large alligator population, so spotting one in the water didn't initially alarm him. But something about this particular gator caught his attention. It was holding something large in its mouth, something that didn't look right. As the realization of what he was seeing sank in, a wave of dread swept over him. With officers and search crews already canvassing the area, Liddell quickly flagged them down. As authorities approached, they saw what he had seen: an alligator holding the lifeless body of a small child. An officer took aim and fired a single shot at the alligator's head. The animal released its grip, allowing police to recover the body. Tragically, it was soon confirmed. The child was 2-year-old Taylen Mosley.
What was the reaction, I guess, to seeing the human body in an alligator's mouth after that shot was fired?
Well, I can't tell you that. Just think about anybody. The officer sees a body of a child. What would be your reaction to that? What would you think? So that officer, he or she has to, they've been working since Wednesday, and they see a child in an alligator's mouth. So they got to do their job, but at the same time, I can't tell you their reaction. I can tell you probably a lot of emotion went through their body, but they still had to do their job.
Investigators immediately turned their attention to Taylen's father, Thomas Mosley, who had checked himself into St. Anthony's Hospital with numerous cuts on his arms and legs. While the injuries raised serious red flags, authorities knew they needed solid evidence before they could move forward with an arrest. Suspicion was mounting, but the case had to be airtight. By April 1st, the case had exploded across social media, with headlines like, "Boy found in alligator's mouth," "2-year-old eaten by gator," and "Missing toddler discovered in jaws of alligator." Many assumed it had to be some kind of sick April Fool's prank. But for those familiar with Florida's wildlife, the horror was all too real. While alligator attacks on pets and small children aren't unheard of, the idea that something this horrific had happened to little Taylen left the entire community shaken. People demanded answers. How did Taylen end up in that lake? Was he alive when it happened? Determined to find those answers, investigators returned to the original crime scene, Pashun Jeffrey's apartment. There, they uncovered crucial evidence. In the bathroom, near her body, police discovered bloody footprints imprinted with the unmistakable Gucci logo, suggesting the killer had been wearing designer shoes. Underneath the bed, they found a bottle of cleaning solution covered in blood and fingerprints. Forensic analysis confirmed those prints belonged to Thomas Mosley. Investigators also reviewed data from Pashun's phone. The phone had left her apartment around 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday night, pinged briefly near Lake Maggiore, the very lake where Taylen's body was found, and then showed up at Thomas's mother's house around 9:15 p.m. Not long after, Thomas went to the hospital to get treatment for his injuries. This timeline, paired with the forensic evidence, gave investigators what they needed. Thomas Mosley was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for Pashun Jeffrey and one for their son, Taylen. In a press conference, the St. Petersburg police chief addressed the public, explaining how the investigation had unfolded and confirming the charges filed against Thomas. The community, though devastated, finally had some measure of justice beginning to take shape.
The father, Thomas Mosley, is now being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. I can tell you now that Taylen's mom, Miss Jeffries, her body was stabbed multiple times. Until the medical examiner has a chance to look at Taylen's body, we cannot tell you the cause of death.
Following the arrest of Thomas Mosley on Friday night, disturbing new details emerged through the release of the official affidavit. While the police chief had already confirmed Pashun had been stabbed numerous times, the exact number, over 100 stab wounds, revealed the shocking brutality of the crime. It painted a clearer, more horrifying picture of the violence she endured. As for young Taylen, the circumstances surrounding his death were initially unclear. Early reports hinted that he may have been thrown into the lake, raising haunting questions. Was he still alive when he entered the water? Was it the alligator that killed him, or something else? According to the medical examiner's report, Taylen had been alive when he was placed in the lake, but contrary to early fears, there were no signs of trauma from an animal attack. His body was found fully intact, and his cause of death was ruled as drowning. The day after the arrest, Thomas Mosley appeared in court for the first time and pleaded not guilty. Criminal defense attorney Bryant Camerino weighed in on the case, noting the overwhelming challenges Mosley's defense would face. Unless there's a claim of mental illness, insanity, or incompetence, there really doesn't seem to be much of a defense, Camerino explained. He added that given the complex nature of the case, it could take up to 2 years to reach trial. When asked if the evidence was compelling enough to secure a conviction, Camerino responded, "The circumstantial evidence is significant. Over 100 stab wounds, the self-inflicted injuries, and the drowning of his child all point toward premeditation. There's a strong case here." With Mosley now facing 2 charges of first-degree murder, Camerino also noted that his legal team might push for a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. "If I were representing him, I'd be trying to settle the case. Maybe offer life imprisonment or a 50-year sentence. It's essentially a life sentence, but not the same as execution, which could involve years of appeals and litigation." Little was publicly known about Mosley's past, but a search uncovered a YouTube channel tied to him. It had more than 1,000 subscribers and dozens of low-budget rap videos showing Thomas flashing cash, holding weapons, and smoking marijuana in over-the-top displays. As for the lyrics, if you could call them that, they were chaotic, difficult to follow, and raised questions about his mental stability. His bizarre online persona added weight to concerns raised by law enforcement. One officer noted that Mosley had exhibited signs of psychological instability during his brief hospital stay. Typically, police wouldn't comment on a suspect's mental health unless something truly stood out. This observation opened the door for a potential insanity defense. In Florida, first-degree murder is punishable by death. If Mosley's lawyers decide to pursue a mental health defense, it would likely be an attempt to avoid capital punishment. Cases like Aiden Fucci's have shown how difficult it is to use insanity as a viable defense, especially if the behavior seems rehearsed or manipulative. Another theory, one that was quickly dismissed by police, was that Mosley had been a victim himself during the attack. Investigators found no evidence supporting this idea. Still, one strange detail lingered. Immediately after the crime, Mosley voluntarily checked himself into the hospital. Most killers would try to flee or lie low, not walk into a facility where they could easily be caught. His injuries must have been severe enough to warrant immediate treatment, or perhaps he didn't fully comprehend the consequences of his actions. The fact that he remained hospitalized for nearly 2 days before being taken into custody adds another layer to the mystery. Online speculation swirled with dark theories. Some believed Mosley had planned the murders to coincide with his 21st birthday. The idea was chilling, waiting until after the party, taking Pashun's phone, not trying to run. It all suggested a calculated, premeditated act. The sheer brutality, stabbing her over 100 times, pointed to rage far beyond a spontaneous outburst. And what he did to Taylen, that felt deliberate, not impulsive. The most horrifying part remains how he disposed of his son, tossing a 2-year-old into a gator-filled lake as if he were disposable garbage. There's little doubt that Mosley intended for Taylen never to be found. Had it not been for little Golden, a fisherman who happened to be at Lake Maggiore at just the right time, the toddler's body might have remained lost forever. As fate would have it, Little later discovered that Pashun may have been a distant relative of his. As a father himself, with a child the same age as Taylen, he described the trauma of that moment and said it felt like something more than coincidence. He believes he was meant to be there, calling it an act of divine intervention. Pashun's family continues to fight for justice while enduring unimaginable grief. In October 2023, a judge ruled that Thomas Mosley was not mentally competent to stand trial after 2 court-appointed doctors evaluated him. The judge ordered that he be committed to a state mental hospital in Chattahoochee for treatment. I find that Mr. Mosley is currently not competent to proceed, the judge said, but I do believe he can be restored. In 2024, Mosley underwent further psychological evaluations, but as of the making of this video, no official updates on his mental status or trial progress have been made public. Legal expert Anthony Rickman weighed in. Even though he's been found incompetent now, it doesn't mean he won't face trial later. He's being sent to a facility to regain competency. This isn't about what his mental state was during the crime. It's about whether he's mentally able to participate in his own defense right now. So far, Mosley's family has remained silent. Pashun's family, on the other hand, has shown incredible strength by speaking out publicly, demanding justice for a young mother and her little boy whose lives were taken far too soon.
I want people to remember them as 2 kids who absolutely loved each other.
For Pashun's family, the most haunting thought is how much both mother and son must have suffered.
Biggest worry was that how they suffered. And when I close my eyes at night, that's all I see was the suffering of both of them. I feel like the community has wrapped their arms around us, and it's a wonderful feeling.
It might be years before this case ever reaches a courtroom. Still, many are holding on to the hope that Thomas will come forward and take responsibility before then, sparing Pashun and Taylen's loved ones from having to relive every horrific detail at trial. For now, we wait, hoping for new developments, including answers about Thomas's past and any red flags that may have been missed. So what's your take on this case? We're convinced that Thomas is responsible for this unimaginable tragedy, but could mental illness have played a role? It's hard to reconcile the idea of someone snapping with what looks like calculated, methodical violence. If this was truly a moment of lost control, why wasn't Taylen spared? Why not drop him off somewhere safe? Instead, everything points to a plan with no regard for human life. What's also hard to wrap our heads around is the fact that Thomas seemed obsessed with fame. He had a music channel, followers, and big dreams. So why destroy his future like this? Was it bitterness over a failed career? Or was there a darker, more personal motive rooted in his relationship with Pashun? Something we may never fully understand. No matter what the coming years reveal, one truth is undeniable. Pashun and Taylen deserve justice. She was a devoted mother, doing her best to build a brighter future for her little boy. To have both of their lives taken in such a brutal and senseless way is truly devastating. If this story moved you, be sure to check out the rest of our channel for more deep dive true crime coverage. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest cases. And if there's a story you think we should tell next, let us know in the comments. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.